Good day, students. I'm teacher Michael again, and today we're going to discuss respiratory and circulatory system. Our learning objective explain how the respiratory and circulatory systems work together to transport nutrients, gases, and other molecules to and from the different parts of the body. What body system is responsible for breathing? You're correct. That is respiratory system. The human respiratory system is liable for the method of respiration that's vital to the survival of living beings. It is composed of different parts such as nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. On the following slide, we will discuss one by one the parts of respiratory system and their functions. What do you think is the first part? Correct, that is nose. The nose is what we normally use to inhale and exhale. It is the first organ where first air enters. It has nostrils and cilia that helps for the nose to filter the air. Next, that's correct, mouth. The mouth is what we use to breathe when we need more air. So that is our mouth. Next is pharynx. The pharynx or our throat is behind the nose and mouth. This is both part of respiratory and digestive system because aside from the air, the throat or our pharynx is also the passageway of the food. It has tonsils which partially obstruct the passage of food and air. Next part is larynx or our voice box. Our larynx or our vocal cords, it houses the vocal cords and the different muscles used in producing sounds. So it is liable for the production of sound. That is what we call larynx. At the top of the larynx is a epiglottis, aids in closing the larynx tightly to prevent passage of food or liquids. So there's another organ at the top of the larynx. That is what we call epiglottis. The epiglottis prevents the food coming or entering our larynx, because once the food enters in our larynx, we get choked. So this is how the epiglottis works to prevent the food entering our larynx. Next part is what we call trachea. The trachea is also called windpipe. It is a tube through which respiratory gas transport takes place. It is lined with ciliated cells to push particles out and cartilage rings to guard it against pressure when breathing. So that is trachea. The next one or the next part of respiratory system is the bronchi. These are two tubes found at the end of the trachea. So this is the two tubes at the end of the trachea. That is what we call bronchi. Next part is what we call bronchioles. The bronchioles are inside of our lungs. It is several thin-walled branches, or it is as thin as our hair. So this is our hair-like tubes inside of our lungs. So these are the subdivisions of the bronchi. These are bronchiole. Next is alveoli. The alveoli, these are the air sacs inside of our lungs where gas exchange happens. It is surrounded by blood vessels called capillaries. So at the end of the bronchioles are what we call alveoli. So these are the air sacs where gas exchange happens. Next is our lungs. Lungs is the most essential organ because it contains the bronchioles and the alveoli. It is consists of tracer, bronchioles and alveoli, blood vessels, and elastic tissue. Its main function is to transfer oxygen to the bloodstream and to excrete carbon dioxide in the air. So inside of our lungs, there is what we call gas exchange. The exchange of gases between the oxygen we inhale and the carbon dioxide that we need to exhale. So these are the part of respiratory system. Every part of respiratory system is very important to perform the main function of respiratory system, which is to breathe, for us to breathe, or for respiration. When we inhale air, the air first enters in our nose and mouth. Then the air flows to your nasal cavity, which is also a part of our respiratory system that helps to filter the air. Then the air flows to your pharynx or throat. Then it goes to your larynx. It flows to your trachea. Then the air flows to bronchi. Then the air flows to bronchioles. And the air flows to the alveoli. And bronchioles and alveoli are inside of our lungs. So once the air gets inside of our lungs, our body already have an oxygen. Then, when we exhale, the carbon dioxide, which is a gas that we need to exhale, will flow from the alveoli, going to the bronchioles, bronchi, trachea, larynx, pharynx, nasal cavity. Then with that's the time we exhale carbon dioxide. When we inhale and exhale, so there's an organ that's very important in while we inhale and exhale. Okay, so that's what we call the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a shape like a parachute and located below your lungs. It divides the chest cavity from our abdomen. So it has intercostal muscles which are located it is a intercostal muscles that are located between your ribs. That's our diaphragm. The diaphragm contracts and moves downward when we inhale. Okay, so aside from that, when we inhale, the chest cavity expands, or our chest expands. Aside from those things, our ribs also move upward or outward, and our lungs expand when we inhale because we get in air or oxygen. On the other hand, when we exhale, the diaphragm relaxes and moves upward. Our chest cavity returns to its size, the ribs return to its position, and our lungs returns to its size. So those are the things happens inside of, or those are the things happens when we inhale and exhale. Now, after we inhale oxygen, what's next? So after we inhale oxygen, the oxygen must be distributed to the different parts of our body through another body system, and that is what we call circulatory system. Circulatory system, its main function is to transport oxygen and nutrients to the body cells and to carry deoxygenated or oxygen-poor blood and carbon dioxide back to the heart and to the lungs. Its major parts are heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. The blood, or the fluid transport, is a tissue made of fluid, cells, and fragments of cells. The fluid or the flowing portion of the blood is termed plasma. Plasma is a straw-colored fluid and makes up about 55% of the total volume of the blood. Aside from the plasma, the blood also contains red and white blood cells, and also platelets which are suspended in the plasma. So these are the composition of the blood vessels. Is another part of circulatory system. It is the where the blood circulates, or it is the carrier of the blood. Okay, so there are different types of blood vessels. These are the arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart towards the rest of the body. It carries oxygenated or oxygen-rich blood. Okay, it branches off into smaller arteries called arterioles. One type of blood vessel is what we call veins. The veins carry blood from the rest of the body back towards the heart. It carries deoxygenated blood or oxygen-poor blood. The smaller veins are called venules. Another type of blood vessels which carries blood are what we call capillaries, which are the smallest blood vessels that move blood to and from the cells of the body. Its walls are very thin that materials can easily diffuse into and out of them. Another part of circulatory system is our heart. That's the vital pump. The main function of the heart is to keep the blood moving constantly to the body. It has 4 larger chambers. We have the right atrium, okay, the left atrium, the right ventricle, and the left ventricles. The ventricles are separated by a thick wall called septum. The heart valves are flaps of tissue that prevent the blood flowing backwards. So aside from 4 chambers, our heart has 4 valves that flaps or are flap of tissues that prevent the blood from flowing backwards. So these valves are the tricuspid valve, the pulmonary valve, the aortic valve, and the mitral valve. So these valves prevents the blood from flowing backward. There are types of circulations. Okay. These are the 3 types of circulation. First is the pulmonary circulation. It occurs only between the heart and the lungs. Next is what we call systemic circulation. That's the movement of the blood or the circulation of the blood where it occurs between the heart and the rest of the body, excluding or except for the lungs. And the last type of circulation we called coronary circulation. So that's the movement of the blood inside of our heart. Okay, it consists of the blood vessel that supply blood to and remove blood from the heart. How does the blood flow? How does the blood flow to your heart, and how this heart pumps the blood to your lungs and go back to the heart, and how this blood will pump the blood to the different parts of the body. Okay, when the blood become deoxygenated, meaning the blood become poor in oxygen because the oxygen is already delivered to the different parts of your body. From the lower and upper part of the body, the deoxygenated blood or oxygen-poor blood will go back to your heart. Once it go back, it will first enter, okay, to superior and inferior vena cava. So this is the superior and inferior vena cava. So the blood enters in your superior vena cava, comes from the upper part of your body. The blood or the deoxygenated blood that flows to your inferior vena cava comes to the lower part of your body. After it flows on that part, the blood will meet to the right atrium. Then a certain valve opens. That's a tricuspid valve. Then the blood will flow to your right ventricle. Then another valve open. That is what we call pulmonary valve. Then from pulmonary valve, the blood or the deoxygenated blood will flow to your pulmonary artery. Then this pulmonary artery is connected to lungs. Once the blood already or flows to your lungs, the blood become oxygenated. Okay, so that's the time it becomes rich in oxygen. Then that blood comes from the lungs. It will go back to the heart through what we call pulmonary veins. Then from pulmonary veins, it will enter to another chamber, the heart, which is what we call left atrium. Then a certain valve opens, that's what we call mitral valve. Then the oxygenated blood will now flow to another chamber, which is what we call left ventricle. Then another valve will open, that is what we call aortic valve, and the oxygen-rich blood or oxygenated blood will now flow to your aorta. Then from aorta, the oxygen-rich blood will now distributed to the different parts of your body. So that's how the blood flows inside of your heart, going to the lungs and back to the heart, then to the different parts of your body. The respiratory and circulatory systems work closely together to maintain homeostasis in the face of constant change. Every time you exercise, lie down to rest, or simply stand up, you change your needs for oxygen and nutrients. As a result, your heart speeds up and slows down, and you breathe faster or slower, depending on your activity. So, respiratory and circulatory system work together for us to provide oxygen. Okay, so these systems, its main function is to provide oxygen. We inhale air or oxygen to a respiratory system, and this oxygen will be delivered to the different parts of your body through the help of circulation of what we call circulatory system. That's all for this day. Thank you for listening.